Paul, good evening. How you doing this evening?
I am doing great, Mike. Great to have you on here tonight. I'm gonna make sure everybody can hear you good. I think they can.
Hopefully, I can get
Yes.
louder if you want me to.
You're
That's not a problem.
all right. You sound pretty loud coming in.
Right.
What?
Okay, good to go.
All right, Mike. It's been a busy week, hasn't it?
Very, very busy.
Okay, so you've stirred up the whole hornet's nest. Okay, with you got the devil nervous, you got everybody nervous, exactly the way they should be. With so we call this show again Doomsday, Part 2. We threw out that date since you threw it out there. And I have said it 50 times. You didn't say that's the rapture. You didn't say that's the second coming. You didn't say that's the end of the world. You said that is the first of 17 dates.
Oh, yeah.
Could you want to pick it up there? And we also want to hear about more of these creatures in the heart of the earth. But let's start with this January 5th, 2023, Mike, and tell us what you mean by that date and the 17 dates. What's coming?
Well, Pascal, kind of like this supernova, right? With all the supernovae out there and all these explosions, when they print news, right? They print news and they often act like it was a surprise to them also, right?
Yep.
But I guess some of the folks at COT know that prior to that, I've spoken about a date of a wave that was coming through, right? That was confirmed a few days before they, popped out with that news, which, by the way, it was detected that and some other things. But it does give an example of what is actually detected long before it ever happens. Some items can't be detected that way, but when they're so extreme and so large, this explosion, I know they're calling it a big one, right? Because It was very exciting news. It justified finances for quite a few platforms that NASA, the European Space Agency, and all these people use. But that was finance justification. So they knew about that and some more things. The only difference is that wave was somewhat benign concerning the Earth because it was not a penetration hit, right? It was way out there. Well, we have some more issues out there, right? Long time ago, also, I told, I believe it was 2014, 15, somewhere around that date, I was talking about magnetars, and that magnetars are a nightmare for just about every scientist out there because they know there's no defense against a magnetar. It is absolutely destructive in its power. Now, we know there have been some flashpoints out there in space due to its detection. Looks like they're coming right towards us. Yeah, more than a few. Not to mention that, but some of the more exotic chemicals that are out there in space, when they get closer to our solar system, which will happen January 5th, they're going to start dissolving, turn into gases. And we have a lot of junk coming our way with quite a few explosions out there. And if anybody has been paying attention, if you have to be very astute when you look at some of the reactions from both the sun and these external explosions. You'll notice we always have some sort of comms network adaptation that has to take place because it just absolutely ruins it. Not only that, our weather is affected greatly, right? It's like clockwork. Every time something like this goes off, there is some sort of change. January 5th is a combination of a few things, but it's just going to be one of those wake-up calls. It's going to give everybody a demonstration that they're not as safe as they think they are.
So these magnetars, these explosions. So you're saying on January 5th, 2023, there's going to be an impact out in the universe, out in the solar system. Maybe not a rock hitting another planet, maybe, but a cloud of debris or some type of, what would you say it is that causes this?
We had a space anomaly, right? Okay. It will penetrate the heliosphere January 5th. It will start coming in internally into the solar system following that that date. Now, we could have an actual upsetting event on January 5th. We're talking about some enormous power, right? Enormous power. I don't think that the Earth has never encountered that type power in living history. We're talking about something that's much more than that Carrington event, right?
Wow.
Something much more than that. So there is no conclusion as to what can actually happen, but it will certainly be a wake-up call. It will affect, I know for a fact, it's going to eventually affect people's health. It will affect volcanism. Magma is moving all over the place. And by the way, they're trying to keep that under wraps. It'll do quite a few things. Now, there's also, it could be a chance that normally in these explosions or these ripples of this type, there is debris. So following January 5th, we could have some sort of inbound cluster, possibly, that would be associated with some of these explosions. They dislodge a lot of material, and we're talking about something that happened potentially, thousands of years ago, just now getting to us, right? And so there's no dodging it.
How long, Mike?
It'll certainly be a wake-up call.
How long, Mike, have the scientists, the NASA, everyone that's been studying space, how long have they known about this coming? 40 years, 20 years?
Italy, believe it or not, Italy has located and has studied quite a few things that have become quite extraordinary and will be life-altering in the near future. But Italy keeps track of celestial happenings very closely. And in fact, they devote probably, I would say, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's a devoted discipline towards celestial happenings, right? They're very interested in that. And so they are key figures, key elements in whatever celestial discoveries do happen. But they've known about this, Pascal, since 1983, 83, 87, 91, 93 or 92, on up to the present day of certain celestial events that we cannot dodge.
So they've known about these certain celestial events we can't dodge. There's a cloud of debris. I've heard you mention this before, that there's two big clouds of debris that were coming our way. I think you might have talked about that about a year ago or so.
Yeah, yep.
Is that part of what you're saying? And we're the first?
No, not January 5th. Actually, this debris cloud is separate from all of it.
Okay.
And that could actually start, we've already entered into part of a lip of that debris field. You could say we've entered into the halo of this cloud. And it's going to become thicker and thicker and more dense as we enter into it. Right now, we're in the exotic elements parts where these particulates are beginning to increase our ionosphere's density. That's where we're picking up all these particles from. The sun's activity, no doubt influenced by part of this. Now, there's another perturber. There's a lot happening out there. There's one more force we have to deal with, and it's part of that binary system. We're not dodging that either.
So
we're not going to dodge that either.
Okay. So you're saying the binary system, Planet X, is a separate issue from this. Is that right?
Absolutely.
And they're both coming in around the same time?
Yeah, well, we're going to have ongoing and building effects from the binary.
Okay.
We're going to have ongoing and building effects. Some are known, some are unknown. The vast majority are unknown. The Earth is going to continue to change geologically in very bad ways, in very rough ways, right? But these things are inevitable. It's kind of like a big cyclic season that we were not alive to actually observe the last time it came through. Now, as far as the dates and intervals and all these things, no, to be honest with you, no one is absolutely sure of those intervals. There's too many contradictions as far as when they think the last cycle actually was. So it's always going to be 1,000-year gap or plus or minus 2,000 or 3,000 years. That's a pretty big gap. But we know by the sun's activity and by all the planets' activity, a process has actually begun. So we have heating. The heating cycles of these planets is actually picking up on every single planet, not just Earth. It's happening everywhere.
So, Mike, folks, Mike from around the world's with us tonight. We are talking about Doomsday Part 2. We're talking about this event. Now, do they? There's 17 events they've already indicated. They know when these events are going to happen. Well, are some of those events more drastic or more dangerous than the others? And are these? Let me ask you this: the first one's January 5th. When is the 17th? Is it within a?
They're going to be following that. They're going to be following that.
I mean,
Those
like
those dates.
Like a 2-year span, or
No.
A lot closer.
2023 is going to be a very jam-packed year.
Wow.
Very jam-packed year. So, I mean, we already have things developing in the next couple of weeks, I believe. We have some, I'll call them shadows, will come very close to us. If not, drop a couple of presents right in our atmosphere in a couple of weeks. But, we're in a very active part of space. And it's going to become more and more dense as we continue along.
That's why you've been worried about this deadly winter. There must be more than one date going to happen during this winter, and so we don't know the ramifications of this first day, do we, on the Earth? Mike's striking some nerves here, so he'll be right back, I'm sure. Usually when that happens, it's the NSA telling us move to another subject. Well, let's see. All right, Mike, are we hitting nerves?
Okay, I'm back.
Okay. Have we hit a couple nerves out there, maybe?
That's pretty odd.
I guess I'm pushing too hard here, but are we going to experience? Do we even know what we will experience that much in this first wave, this first hit?
Yeah, we're going to have increased volcanism. That's going to become a real problem.
So
geology is going to be affected greatly.
Are you worried about that? The largest volcano in the world, which is in Hawaii, and it's starting to wake up. Are you worried about that?
No. Well, let me tell a small story.
Okay.
Passball. When they print these articles, right? First of all, we mentioned something on your show nobody wants mentioned, right? They don't want to. That's why I keep mentioning it. And it starts with a T. You know that name. T. The first name is T. Last name is M. So let me give you this picture because they've spent 20 years researching this thing, right? They've looked into it for 20 years, and they spent millions of dollars. But they've come out. They don't want anybody looking at this. Now, Mauna Loa is 9,600 cubic miles. That's how big it is. That's pretty big. That's really big. Kilimanjaro is smaller. It's like 1,000, right? 1,150 cubic miles. The one I'm talking about is 600,000 cubic miles.
What?
That's what I'm talking about.
Are you serious?
So,
what?
Yeah. But they don't want, I'm telling you now, they don't want that to ever take their front page on anything.
Where's this thing at? Again?
That's near Japan.
Okay.
And they don't want anybody to ever, lock on this because should it leak that this thing has activity, there's nothing anybody can do about that. This will change the globe if it goes off. That's why they don't want anybody talking about that, right? There's another one too. Another one they're not paying attention to. They're not really talking about, and it's underwater. It's Marseille. That's about 100 miles or 110 miles south of Naples. It's about 3,000 meters high, right? Which is about, 9,800 feet high. It's pretty high. It has a base of 70,000 meters long by 30,000 meters wide. That's about 43 by 19 miles. It has a peak of 500 meters, which is, average. It's about 1,640 feet. But it's 500 meters, right? The peak of it is 500 meters under the water. Here's the bad part about it. This thing is rumbling, right?
Wow.
This thing is actually rumbling. And if it does not erupt, but it continues to rumble, it's going to cause a landslide. If that landslide hits all those places in Italy, all of them in Italy are going to be hit by a 100-foot wave. This thing is massive, and it's an underwater volcano. So I'm watching that one very closely.
Wow.
It's still rumbling, still building up. They have that magma chamber is just churning. is churning big time. That's one of, I believe, one of 6 underneath the ocean that are really beginning to rumble. And of course, micro earthquakes, right? When you measure micro earthquakes, that gives you a good indication of what the lava is doing, right? So if it's either churning or not churning, and in this case, it's churning big time, and it's becoming worse, as we continue to go along. So that's also a pretty big one. That's a pretty big one. But the Hawaii would be a relief if that would actually blow the way it's designed. It would be a relief. It would release magma, but it would be a relief, kind of like opening up a valve on a pressure cooker or something like that, right? It's not going to actually, blow and a bunch of ash goes into the clouds and stays there for years. That's not that type of volcano. It will disperse quickly. It'll probably create, bigger land masses. But we need something just like that to relieve some of this pressure in the earth. If we don't get that, we're going to continue to have a buildup of micro earthquakes, which lead to earthquakes of about a 4.75.0. And then, of course, that continues. We're going to be in real trouble because we already have back pressure on just about every single plate, tectonic plate on the earth. So it's a very...
So you're worried about the big volcano in Japan and probably the one over there in Italy and Tonga and Kilauea and maybe some of these, but you're also worried about some of these fault lines, right? I mean,
oh yeah, because if we don't get relief, if the pressure is not relieved, right, they're going to snap. They're going to snap. Land is always moving. It's always building up pressure, always. The only thing that can relieve that pressure is when underneath it is actually melted by magma, recycled, right? And it goes through a kind of release of pressure. If the magma builds up and it can't find a way out, you're going to have a buildup of another type, which is going to exacerbate some of these fault slips and everything else. And you're going to have a bunch of faults going off. Right?
Yeah.
We could actually have a pretty bad ripple. Of course, we have icebergs that are ready to fall off. We don't need a lot of earthquakes. And I suspect we're about to go through a very shaky moment. I don't believe there's any way that, I don't believe it's going to happen. I don't think we're going to have the relief we need from the magma, given that and some of the pressures that are coming into our solar system. I believe that we're going to be shaken up quite a bit.
Mike, when you talk about these shakings that are coming, of course, there's January 5th, 2023, this event that starts to really kick off a series of events for 17 different dates. And we look at the Bible and we see where he said there's a great woe to the inhabitants of the earth. We read about different types of events that the earth's going to reel and rock like a drunkard. There's a pole shift coming, and you've been very concerned about that. Is that tied into any of this, or is those separate? Are those
Sure
separate
does.
issues?
It does, because this external activity can change. It can literally change the orbit the Earth has. It can.
Wow.
It can actually change its rotation. We're dealing with massive forces, right, that make the Earth look like a ping pong ball, in comparison to other objects. And so with these massive forces, we're going to see large changes in the earth. I made a bold statement a couple of days ago, Pastor Paul. I said, this is it. This is really it. I do not believe we're going backward to Sunshine City, that, the Sunshine Place. I think the earth is in this progressive path, this process of degrading, just like it states in the Bible. I do.
Yeah.
I do not believe it's going to go backward. I say that not only because of the tangible things and these, things that we can observe, but because of the things people don't speak about, right? The things that Christians probably should know about, because they don't even know it, but they're faced with the forces right now, and they may be losing and they may not know it. But there are some things on earth that should be explained. The more we go forward, the more of a heart people are going to have who have been in certain predicaments, and hopefully they'll begin to speak about these things, because, Pastor Paul, I know people are trying to prepare for these physical things like earthquakes and volcanoes. They're going to have to deal with an ash environment. Something is about to happen to our suns. The orbit of the Earth is going to be shifted. It's going to shift big time, and our weather patterns are going to be all messed up. But we're also going to have to deal with what's been here for a long time. There's a story that many are itching to tell because they've been face to face with it. Now, we're not talking about something somebody heard from somebody else. And I've been trying to get a couple of folks that your whole audience, they know exactly who these people are. But I'm going to try to dovetail them in somehow so we can set something up with you so they can actually speak to your audience.
Yes.
That will be at a very specific time when, because things are about to become a little tough, right? A little tough.
You're saying, so you're saying there's a couple people that are on the inside that are privy to some of the information you are, who are you think are about ready to speak some about this, and
they know it's a great necessity that people understand and know it.
It's a timing thing, but when they're ready, you contact Heidi and let us know, and yes, we will bring them on, and Mike, and let them speak freely. And because I just heard you say it. You said a couple days ago, you said it, that there's no going back. I mean, in other words, it's on, isn't it? We're in the days of the Bible spoke about. There is no getting better. It's, Jim Baker kept saying to me, if you think it's going to get better, I'm sorry. I know we would all like to say that or would hope for it, but things are going to get worse. And it's not just the sin and the violence and the wars and the pandemics, but it's the environment itself, the climate itself, the things that are happening to the earth. There's no going back is what I'm hearing you say.
No, there's no going back. And then the hardest part, Pastor Paul, is when if you knew for a fact that outside your house it was freezing, but nobody inside your house knew what freezing was, how would you explain that to them, right? Yeah. If nobody could go outside the house yet, how would you explain that to them? If you've been out there, if you've been in that cold, you know what it takes to survive. It's very difficult to explain to somebody who has no context for it. Often I refer to certain things in the Bible, and in the hopes that people will, kind of pray about it and say, Lord, just show me, or open up my mind, or let me take this in and let me be robust against it. For example, here's the truth. If a person cannot go through their day and master their emotions, they cannot withstand standing in front or being under the influence of a very low level thing that they're going to have to deal with in the world. And it's not like God does not train us. He gives us, every day we have an opportunity to overcome. Every day we have an opportunity to stand in the face of things that often make us, go backwards. But will we do it? Because the Lord He's affording us an opportunity to walk out Scripture, not just to read it and know it, but to walk it out and live it so it becomes part with us. But that takes encouragement. I know that a lot of people are hesitant because of society. And believe it or not, Satan has usurped society so that if he doesn't make it convenient for people to do, or if a lot of people don't accept it, a Christian will back down. They don't want to be the only one doing a specific thing. Right. They have to learn to say, Jimmy crack corn and I don't care, and go forward. That takes a type of boldness, not out of anger, but out of care itself. So what I'm saying is that as soon as Christians begin to see who their neighbor actually is, that's when they'll stand up in boldness and continue to walk forward, because it's not walking forward with an attitude or anything like that. It's all based in care, compassion, right?
Yes.
For somebody else. And if they did that, nothing can stop them, because they will, people are going to cower in the corner of their homes, Pastor Paul. They're going to cower in the corner of their homes, scared to move left or right.
Well,
they really don't know what they're facing.
Men's hearts are going to fail them for fear of things coming upon the earth. So they're going to have heart attacks and just fall over dead. You're saying people will be paralyzed in fear.
Yes, they will.
Yeah.
Yes, they will.
I interviewed Celeste Salome last night. We just posted it on our app, New Apocalypse Watch. For those of you who have the app, you can watch it. I think Bart said he put it on a 2-part series. I'm going to try to put it on Patreon tomorrow if I can. But we got talking about entities. She used to work for FEMA for 20 years. I'm not talking about just low-level FEMA. I mean, she was working with the director of FEMA. So,
Right.
you know, she knew about some of the agendas that are been put in play.
Yeah.
And she walked away. She finally just said, I got to get away. And she went and hid actually in the mountains for 7 years. But she said that there are creatures. We were talking about transhumanism and some of this immortal cells, which just blows my mind, and cells that won't die that they've been able to create so that they're genetically changing people or entities. And she said there's things in the earth, there may be as many as 2 million of them that are huge and strange and dangerous. You mentioned this last week to some degree. Can you go back and revisit that again?
Yeah, because they have certain protocols in place.
Okay.
If they breach, if any of those things breach in any country, right? Well, first of all, it's why. If a person is out there, they're doing their thing and they report one of these things, right?
Yeah.
They're going to be hushed. Even to this very day, they're going to be hushed. Doesn't matter who you are, you're going to be hushed. Because these things it's not like you're dealing with something dumb or an animal. You know, it'd be nice if it were an animal, but it's not an animal. They're under some sort of influence, I guess you could say. But you're talking about very ancient things, right? Ancient things you can't tell, half the time you can't tell the difference between them and rocks or something like that, right? Now, I would say that they're the most dangerous things that people, hopefully, but there's a law in place right now. Now, lots of people have lost their lives to these things. Lots of folks have lost their lives.
Are you serious?
Yeah, but these folks that lose their lives, Pastor Paul, they're empty inside.
Okay.
That's important to note here. Every single case, they're empty, which means they have zero belief in anything. They don't believe in anything.
Okay.
These folks are empty. Now, for a Christian, will they actually go up against a Christian? If they know they know who's a Christian and who's not. See, that's the weird part. Can you imagine a creature that understands exactly who you serve? They know who you serve.
Wow.
Right? And they're not going to mess with somebody who truly does serve Christ, who belongs to Christ. They have no permission to do that. They don't operate like us. We do everything we want to do, right? There's a big reason the whole of society has not seen them. It's because they have a lot of checks and balances they have to go through.
So are they under some type of law of God that won't
Yes,
allow
they are.
them?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Yes, they are. Have you ever heard of a place? Now, this is going to sound funny, right?
Okay.
But it may not sound funny after I'm finished. But have you ever heard of a place mentioned called, as some people call it, Argatha? Some people call it, it's been called many different names in every single book that's ever been printed about that subject. It's in ancient knowledge. In the Middle East, they called it one name. In America, they called it Shibalba Bay. Argatha, of course, in those European places, and in where the Tibet is. But come to find out, this is a very real place, right?
Okay.
Here's how they know that. We have satellite mapping, right? They do sound mapping, they do micro vibrational mapping, they do infrared bang, all these different types of mapping. They have noticed tunnels going from one country to another blocked by these thick, they don't know what's in the way of it, but they're blocked, right? So
Right.
at some point, there was large cavernous places in the earth that would probably house about 2, 3, 4 million people in one big cavern. You can't get to those places. They have very weird and small entrances. In Brazil, is one place that's under guard of the U.S. military. They won't let anybody in a certain place in Brazil.
Military guards protecting.
Yes, it's guarded. Nobody can go in that area. In the United States, there are areas that are guarded by Delta operators. Nobody's going in those places. There are places in Europe, the same thing. Now, we're talking about international forces that are guarding these places, right? Nobody can go in those places. By satellite, they can be mapped. But on occasion, on occasion, people have lost their way, right? They've gotten close. They've been, swooped up or something like that. But anyway, the king of the world is said to live down there. The king of the world is a name we know very well. We know who the king of the world is. And he knows every single thing that's happening topside. And every single president, it doesn't matter what country you're from, has to go into an agreement upon their second term with the king of the world, period.
Now, are we talking about a supernatural being?
We're talking about a physical. These
physical.
are, you could call them physical supernatural beings.
Right, okay. They're apparently immortal. Immortal?
Well, they've been around for, I think it's said they've been around for 5,000 to 10,000 years.
I'd call that
They don't age. They don't age. They're very big, right?
Yes.
They
Watchers? I mean, are we talking?
They have culture and everything. Not the ones that are bound.
Okay.
Not the ones that are bound. And not quite like everybody thinks. The earth, the spiritual realm, right, can be in the one of the science experiments that took place in Washington State. They were messing around with time, and they were messing around with space. It was said that they actually made a sphere, and in this sphere, if you could put your hand in the sphere, you couldn't reach the other side of it. This sphere was no bigger than a basketball, but you can never reach the other side, because when you put your hand inside, somehow space and time were distorted. That's when they found out that time and space are one and the same.
Yeah.
And that time, space, and the spiritual realm, speaking of the veil, are intimately tied together. And so if you, like people see these UFO things or a small little sphere, all right, it may look like that on the outside. If a person were to actually put their finger in it or something like that, they may go into a place that's larger than the moon, right? So time and space it's a non-variable in that other side. Here on Earth, the scale of the earth, the way they present it's all messed up. So it seems impossible to have these large cavernous places. Just keep in mind, they found 4 oceans in the earth, larger than the oceans we know of on top of the earth. So that would give you a picture of just how massive the earth actually is, speaking of scale.
Yeah, so that when the Bible talks about the fountains of the earth, or he's separating the waters from the waters with the firmament. In other words, there's oceans in the earth, and then there's oceans on top of the earth, and these oceans, they actually found it. They found one that was they found one that led to another discovery that led to 4 total. These large areas full of water. The volume of water is more water than all the oceans of the earth. Wow.
In one of these things, they found 4. So it should show you what the scale is, right? This underground place, they have entry points and exit points.
Okay.
In the Middle East, there are entry points and exit points, right?
Yep.
In America, there are a couple. In the Grand Canyons, they're located in the Grand Canyons, places that nobody can go into, right? So they normally mark areas where these entrances are, because they don't want anybody going down there, which explains why they found all the mercury pools in Mexico and in South America, and 2 of those mercury pools in Ohio, because there's a pyramid in Ohio, and they're trying their best to prop up the land so they can continue to dig down in there. They find stuff all the time, but they also know about what's in there because they've dealt with them before. Right now, they keep these stories under wraps because education teaches people these things don't exist.
Right.
But you're talking about an entity who has a made body. Now, think of it this way, right? A body that's made up of an abomination, basically. Just think of a human, because they know all about genetics. They know how to mix this species up with that species.
Yeah.
They inhabit whatever they make with their own spirits. They just sit there, and do what they have to do.
Well, it sounds like
they influence humanity all the time. And if you notice, UFOs normally don't go out to space. They go right in the water, or they go right in the land. There are places in Arizona, UFOs go right in the land where nothing is.
Yeah.
They never come back out, right?
Yeah.
They never come back out.
Sedona.
Colorado's the same way. On the East Coast, in West Virginia, In Pennsylvania, in Maine, the same thing. They go in these land places and never come back out.
So it sounds like we're dealing with creatures of the earth, creatures of the sea, creatures of the air. Lucifer is the god of this world, and apparently some of these dark entities are manifesting in different types of forms, bodies.
Many of them in physical body, just like us. Think of a physical body just like us, supercharged with some type of spirit, right? So we have a contingency, though, because if they start coming topside, there's nothing we have that can go against them.
Yeah.
Nothing.
No weapon.
No weapon is going to work against them, right?
Yeah.
So when scriptures like the Bible, when you start reading about the Bible, and then you wonder about stories like this, that I believe it was 2 months ago, a killer whale, a bear, and two mooses were dropped in Colorado on a hilltop. They were just dropped there. Nobody knows how they got there, and they were not rotten or anything, right? So how does that happen? How does a killer whale end up on top of a mountain in Colorado, a hilltop in Colorado?
A whale, a bear, and two mooses.
With two mooses, yes. How does that happen? So here we are. And one of the reasons they don't really want people to know about this UFO story, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you right here. And now hopefully people can jump out the woodwork who have been on recovery teams and then let you know the rest. But the reason they don't want anybody to really know about that is because of body parts. That's why. Body parts.
You mean they're using the body parts of these big animals?
People too. Human body parts.
No!
They don't want anybody to know about that.
Okay, Skinwalker Ranch, you know how we got all this stuff going on.
But just think about human body parts. Right?
Yeah.
They've been blood has been evacuated from legs and all this stuff, and there you are. So they have to bring in recovery teams. In fact, your local fire department has a manual on how to approach anything they find like that. 911 dispatchers, they have procedures to handle things like that. Police officers do the same. It's in their manuals, and they have to. If that ever happens, their communications and phone lines and everything else is going to change. Now, some of the stuff, Pastor Paul, I'll go ahead and tell you, some of the stuff that you see on television is made up. It's just made up. The real story is not as fascinating. It's entirely disgusting. It is a little too real, right? The stuff on television is for fantasy. It really is fantasy. Right. The real story is, if a person knows about demonic entities and some of the stories surrounding demonic entities, then they'll know what the real deal is.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to negotiate with them. They're not going to sit down and have lunch with you or anything else. They are full of deceit. They never tell the truth, right? They'll say anything they can say to maneuver people into positions. They often tell people they're special. And people start falling for it, and they create what's called a heart's connection with a person. That's how they get them. Right now, I would say that the majority of the population is absolutely 100% duped by these things. And the only way to break that beguilement is the Word of God. The Quran won't do it. Hinduism won't do it. In fact, the whole religion of the Mahabharata and the Vedas and all that stuff is about those underneath the ground. Right. Another name for these folks are called Daros. They call them that. I believe the USA Daros. A lot of people have had that encounter.
So the American Indians and the South American Indians and Central and Europe and all kinds of different groups of people in Asia, they've had their legends tell us about this interaction.
They were in league with them. The ant people, they were in league with them. They depended on them. When the flood came, right here in America, when the flood came, right, it is said of the Hopi Indians, just about every single Indian tribe, that the ant people helped them to go down underneath the ground.
The ant people being these creatures from deep into the heart of the earth coming up and working with them.
There you go. There you go. They come at a time when humanity is in great need, right? They also feed off the spoils of man's violence. So you're going to find them every single time we have a conflict. People start seeing them, right? Whenever you start seeing these things in massive numbers, war, is inevitable. It always comes because they somehow they influence the population
Is
a
that
great
why?
deal.
Is that why, Mike, we're seeing more of this because this thermal nuclear war capability possibility? I mean, I'm finding out that that Putin actually wanted to test a couple of nukes, and his people wouldn't let it, or sabotaged it, or blamed it on technical difficulties, or maybe
They delayed him.
Huh?
They delayed him. They only delayed him. He's still going to have those tests.
Yeah.
They only delayed him. Putin is drawing back some of his force because he's putting some more people in their places, right? Well, here's what he's been doing. He's been filtering his army between those who are loyal and those who are not.
Oh, he's figuring
That's
out
what he's been doing.
Yeah.
So when they don't want to follow his orders, when they're trying to escape the country, and trust me, he's taking their names, and they're just not going to be a part of Russia.
Right.
So he knows what he's doing, and believe it or not, you have quite a few hardened soldiers. I mean, quite a few hardened soldiers that really believe in what he's doing. They have the same mind as this guy, and they will serve Putin until they die. They really would give their life for that cause he's put down in their minds. They believe in their country like that.
Do you think?
And
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say all the ones who have any of the people over there, if you notice, those who have been on YouTube, who are been in contact with Western culture, those are the ones that are trying to escape, because when they see the opposite parts of the world, they say, we don't have to live like this. Let's get out of here. But the ones who stay away from that type media, those are the ones that still believe, and they believe strongly in communism. Right? Only when a person is exposed to a lifestyle that offers a new way of freedom outside of their own do they begin to compare, and they want to escape what they're in if they're not good conditions. And so you have a part of the population that wants to leave, but you also have a part of the population that's going to fight to the death. So he has developed, or he has trained some very special police. He's going to call them police because their job is going to be policing. And they're going to hit the ground policing in Syria. They're going to hit the ground in Lebanon. They're going to hit the ground in those 4 territories that he has named. He's drawn back some of the forces to filter them, to get the disloyal individuals out, right? Anybody who is not loyal to him, he wants them out of the country. He wants them out. He wants them to go because he's keeping his own. Plus, he didn't want any of his people in those 4 territories. Pastor Paul, that's a bad message. He wants anybody who's loyal to Russia out of those 4 territories. He does not want his equipment in that. Right now, he doesn't want his equipment there or anything else. And so he's got to find out whoever's loyal to Russia. Just like he said, he's going to save them. Now, why would he say that? Why would he say he's going to save them from these territories? That kind of lets you know what he's about to do.
Is he about ready to drop the tactical nukes on these territories? It's what it sounds like.
I think he's going to drop a hammer. Right?
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is we can see a shift in his missile batteries already. And we're not talking about weapons that people are familiar with. That's a big mistake people are making because they're buying into propaganda. This war is very difficult. This conflict is very difficult to see the truth of unless you're on the ground and have tactical vision, right? And can actually speak to some honest people who are telling you the truth. It's very difficult to track this war. There's propaganda every single day. They do that on purpose to bolster one side or the other. But when Putin starts withdrawing those who are loyal to him out of an area, he's going to hit it hard. Yeah. He's going to hit it hard. He's going to hit it hard because what did they do? They utilized U.S.-made munitions against Russia. He's already said, don't use, if NATO interferes, if they start using NATO's weaponry, we're going to hit them. We're going to hit them hard. Now he's going to hit them with the same force and measure that they struck him with. That's what he's going to do.
So I keep hearing, and I'm going to get your feel on this, that he's really got the United Kingdom as got a target on its back, that he really is angry at the UK.
They know it.
And Prime Minister Liz Truss resigned this morning, and I think it isn't really about the budget and the market, but it's about they need somebody in the leadership of that nation that's not Liz Truss. Is there anything to that? Is this thing bigger than their economic turmoil? Is it more about the war? I
Yeah.
mean, UK's got a target on their back by Russia. Am I right?
Yeah, them and Europe as a whole. Past Paul, the UK took their air force, right, and they split it up into tiny segments, spreading it all over the place, so that if they were hit, their air force would not have a big chunk missing
I
from it,
see.
right?
They spread
They're
it around.
also they also have many of their forces on callback, instant callback notice. These guys are on an orange bayonet to gear up and go fight. They're also coordinating. There are lots of emergency talks in the last 3 days. They haven't stopped. They're still having emergency talks, right? And these are talks with military individuals. So something is happening right now as we speak. Putin is also preparing in kind. Israel is also, they have to prepare, right?
Yeah.
Israel's been, here's what happened to Israel. Ukraine has requested of Israel for their Iron Dome, right?
Yes, they have. Yes.
But Israel is in a very bad spot. Here's why. If they help the Ukraine,
Yep.
then they have no help in Syria. Right now,
Oh.
the S-300 missile system guards the skies in Syria,
Right.
which actually helps Israel out a lot.
Yep.
If they withdraw, and they are taking some of those S-300 missile systems out, they're going to put them right there near for use of the Ukraine. But if they take them all out, that's going to make air sorties that Israel has, it's going to make it very difficult. And so they said no to the Ukraine twice today about a few things. Won't go into detail. I'm sure you're going to find out. But they said we can't help you. They had to make that decision because if they didn't, they know that Iran is right there trying to find a way into Israel. And if folks hear me on this, and Pastor Paul, something no one wants to see is soon to take place, is soon to begin. Is soon to begin. They'll attempt it first. They'll bolster support. And the second time they won't fail. They're going to try it. The second time they won't fail. This is against Israel, right? This is against Israel. The second time they won't fail. The first time, I believe they're going to fail, but they will bolster support. Because imagine Ukraine, right, devastates Russia. The whole world is going to turn against the Ukraine.
Oh, absolutely.
And imagine if Israel, in their fight to defend Israel, uses a little too much force.
Yep.
The entire world is going to turn against them.
Yes, they will.
Despite Iranian intervention and attacks, right? Iran they're practicing right now. They're using drones in the Ukrainian war.
Right,
Iran
we see that.
right.
Kamikaze drones they used just this week.
Yeah, and
Kiev.
here's the key. They're controlling them from Iran. They're doing that command and control hub.
Wow.
Right, which means just like if Russia sent a drone to China, right?
Yep.
Russia through China can control that drone in any part of the world. Their command and control acts as an effective extension, or they can hand over full control of that device. So they have that's so you can have global coverage of supersonic drones.
All right. Is this why Elon Musk is saying, look, I'm really not into keeping the Starlink system open for the Ukrainian airspace? Is it because Iran is using it or could be bouncing off of it?
Oh, no. There's some elements nobody knows. Pastor Paul,
am I onto something, though?
It's bad that children and civilians perish in a war. Right. That's bad.
Right.
I believe that 3 times so far, Putin has actually cried over the children. He has a habit of doing that. He hates that children would ever be hurt in war. He's done that for a long time.
Of course.
He hates that. But he's going to go forward with his objective. The Ukraine, however, their story is not out yet. And that's all I'm going to say that because that's a very divisive conversation.
I understand.
When we start talking about one or the other, you have Christians who grow horns. We don't want that to happen. We don't want any Christian to grow horns.
The Christian community is divided when it comes to the
to
some degree to Russia-Ukraine situation, and I understand that. And war is ugly on both sides,
yes.
on all sides. But the Iranians absolutely able to use kamikaze drones in Ukraine on the civilians there in Kiev. these are Iranian drones. Whether the Iranians are using them or the Russians are using them, are able to hand off, like a baton in the sky. Is Elon Musk trying to shut this down because of what's going on?
He does not want his technology to be utilized for war.
Right.
He does not want his technology to be. He does his contracts with the Defense Department are specifically for vessels of flight, or breakthroughs as far as
he's
AI
got
and
contracts
things like that.
Contracts with DARPA.
Yeah, he likes non-weaponized projects. He likes non-weaponized, and I'm very familiar with DARPA, and so all the projects are not for weaponization.
Right.
Elon doesn't want any part of anything that will be weaponized, and so
he's not a violent guy. He's not a violent guy.
No, he's not. He knows eventually that any supplies to the Ukraine, what Zelensky is going to use them for. Of course, that's not well understood. In hindsight, everybody will look at the war and look at this conflict and say, wow, that was the beginning of World War III, huh? But they'll, always, after something is over, we find out what people were doing. I would just caution everybody right now to just, they're going to put out what they put out on the news. People should be careful of what they connect their heart to.
Yeah, I agree with you.
They should be very careful.
Don't grab what you start hearing on the news and just run with it and say, I knew it and that's it, and make a determination. There's always more to it than what's behind the scene, we don't know. So I'm hearing you on that. And this is why Jesus said it. There's going to be wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled. In other words, don't allow your spirit to get grow horns, as you just said a minute ago. Don't let yourself get emotional or choose sides or get involved too far, because you don't know the whole story. It's bad no matter what it is. Don't let this trouble you or bring fear or bring anything else. I mean, Jesus knew this. The world was going to get bad. It's going to get a whole lot worse, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah, it's not even close. Now, this is, what people are being drawn into now is actually it is almost a non-issue compared to what it could be. And I suspect as it grows, it's going to touch, home more and more. But a Christian, right? I always have to keep my eye on this one thing. Satan is in this world. Yep. It was confirmed that Satan is, he's got all these kingdoms in the world, and everything he does is designed to have us walk away from the word.
That's right.
So if I'm not going to let anything in the world cause me to make another person a target, I think that's what everybody has to be careful of.
Yeah, that's good.
God didn't put us here to have. He didn't put us here to have targets. We're here to intercede, to finish our process, and everything that happens in the end times is for our deliverance.
Yes.
Now, for the bad stuff, it's not going to happen to those who believe in Christ. It's not going to happen to those. It's going to happen to those who stand against him, and only God knows who truly stands against him. But I'll tell you something, Pastor Paul. What they're doing right now, it seems like everything that happens in the earth draws a Christian out and causes them to target someone.
And see, that's what God doesn't want us to do.
That's right. That's Satan's fingerprint. That's exactly what Satan does.
Don't play the devil's game.
Yep.
Stay on God's side and play and use God's characteristics. We're Christian. We're Christ-like. Let's not get in there and start battling it out like the world does, is what you're saying. It's great advice you're giving. I mean, really, Mike, honestly, great advice for all of us, because we get emotional. We see things and we get angry, and all of us do that. We have to be careful. We got to resist that and stay in our lane, stay in our lane, which is to be wise as serpents, harmless as doves, and remain the interceders for the people of the world, the intercession to love people and to shake
your
our
royalty.
Hand. Right.
Your royalty.
We are.
There's no need for. We're not. We're in this world, not of this world. That's what the Bible says.
Right.
And we have a kingdom we serve that's not tainted. The kingdom of God is not tainted by man's policies and ways. So we're going to go in that respect. But it's also, Pastor Paul, it's a good opportunity too, because there were at least 5 folks today that would have never opened their Bibles if current events weren't the way they are. Right. These are hardened colleagues that I have. Right. And they have serious questions now.
Okay.
So
now you
it's
also, you brought up about a week or so ago that there's been an ultimatum, or I should say,
Yeah, it's coming. It's already been. It's being. You'll notice there's coming. That's coming close. I mean, they've drawn it up. Everybody agrees on it. And Pastor Paul, once it's, well, I'll put it this way. You know how we went to war. The president comes on air and says, we are now at war with so-and-so,
right?
Or
Right.
I have set forces to do so-and-so.
Right.
So what they normally do is they come out, they draw these plans up,
Yep.
they evoke these plans, and then once that plan is in full effect, they notify the public afterward, not before, afterward.
Yep.
And so they have reached out to Russia, right?
Yep.
And they're going to give Russia a number of days to reconsider everything. If they don't, well, they're going to do some, they're going to have some, that's what their armies are getting ready for. This week, 2 weeks ago, right, or a week ago, they had 2 weeks. They have 1 week left, Pastor Paul.
Okay.
1 week left to get their underground structures fortified. 1 week to get all medical supplies they're being bought out of everywhere. Medical supplies. So
iodine tablets,
yeah,
and all
iodine,
right,
alcohol,
everything.
all these medical supplies are being bought. The inventory is, it's just
Silver.
It's ridiculous. But they're getting ready.
Yep.
They're getting ready just in case Putin says no, because he may be, they don't know what position he's in. They can only see their own plans, right? But I suspect Putin he's just not going to give in that way. He's not going to do it. He already made it. He already withdrew. Those who were taught, his ambassadors, his political representatives, do you know they're being withdrawn from everywhere. They're being withdrawn. And so that normally means a nation is no longer willing to negotiate with another nation. That's a very bad sign.
A bad sign.
To call those back home, that's just not good.
Halloween is a high satanic day. It's the highest day. I just wonder, sometimes dates are important in warfare. I've noticed that. It's not just the Islamic prophecies that use dates. I mean, you know how many times Israel was attacked on high feast days?
Mockeries.
Yeah.
Mockeries.
I wonder about this Halloween. For some reason, I get a real bad feeling about it. Is there anything out there that's making you nervous about that?
Yeah, because I know for a fact about sacrifices. One thing about these people who worship the devil or serve the king of the world, right? They don't force anybody to do anything. What they do is beguile a person, so that person volunteers their own worship and servitude towards Satan's cause, which means a simple holiday like Halloween. No big deal. Everybody does it, right? Wrong. It is a big deal, because if you have knowledge of something and you ignore it, that's being willfully ignorant of the truth. We know what that stands for. We know what it supports. And if people don't believe it alters their life, then they should really contemplate, why are they aggravated in the first place? Aggravation does not come from the throne of God. Anger does not come from the throne of God. Sorrow, depression, all these things, that doesn't come from the throne of God.
Right.
Grace and goodness and all these things come from the throne. Sobriety comes from the throne. So if a person is sitting around fully confused, Satan is the author of confusion.
Yes.
And they count these things slight. Then after Halloween, their kids come in and they're cutting up. They can't get this situation. They got chaos in the kitchen, the bedroom, the living room, outside in the car breaks down, all this stuff happens. It's because they chose to ignore taking that dark path. Shutting your eyes does not mean if I were to shut my eyes and walk on the highway, it does not mean a car is not going to hit me.
No.
That's being willfully ignorant, right?
Yes, it is.
So I can't do that. Much known, much required. If we have knowledge of it, we are then responsible for it. If a person has no knowledge of it, I don't believe God will hold that person accountable, because God is a God full of grace. But once we know it, we have to keep that standard.
A thought came to me, Mike, as you're talking here, is I'm getting ready to film this. I got to film for this Halloween, Unmasking Halloween, and I've done a lot of research, but I just thought, well, maybe I should probably. I'm wondering if you have time where I could interview you, and you could share with us some of the dark things that you know that people maybe need to know.
Yeah, I could do that.
I'll
I
have
could do
Heidi
that.
send you an email in the morning, and maybe we can arrange to do that. I'd like to put that in this special because there's, and it's not on open forum. It's but the people who get the ticket, they're able to see it. I think we need to know about some of the darkest things, unfortunately, that go on. Like you said, we can't just close our eyes to it. Some people need to know what the real truth of what's happening.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I think we should do that. Mike, wow, Doomsday. I know that's a term, and we got the Doomsday clock and what have you, but it's not Doomsday for the believers, but it is Doomsday for the unbelievers if they don't come to Jesus. Would you agree?
That's right. Their doomsday, our birthday. That's the day we're born.
Their Doomsday is our birthday.
That's right.
Better
When we're
decide.
changed in a twinkling of an eye,
Oh
that'll
man,
be a beautiful day.
that
That'll be a
will be
beautiful
the
day.
best day
Yeah.
ever. I look forward to it as well as you. Mike, thank you so much for coming on, being with us. Really appreciate it. These last 2 weeks, you really opened up your heart on some really key things, and 90-some people last week decided they better make things right with God, and it's a week closer. It's a week closer. It's time to get in, right?
Time is honestly, that term time is running out. There can never be there never be another time where that statement is so relevant, given the time that we live in. So I hope that everybody takes advantage of the time they're given and they do the right thing with that time.
Amen.
I really do.
Amen.
God bless you, Pastor Paul.
Thank you so much, Mike. God bless you. It's great to have you tonight, as always.
Always an honor.
God bless you. Amen. The
God
honor is
bless.
ours. Amen. Mike around the world.